Dratnos, I just finished my Korthia grind. 7 months later, I am excited for the new patch that's coming out hopefully soonish. What am I gonna have to grind during then?
Well, it shouldn't be as bad as Korthia, hopefully. But there are definitely some things behind the rep in this next patch, which is so it's the Enlightened rep. And one of the rewards for Exalted is this item that lets you upgrade all of your conduits to 278. But you also have to complete a high end achievement from either Mythic Plus or from Raid or from PvP, which we're not 100% sure on the Keystone Hero side which achievement that is in specifically, whether it's just any of the dungeons or whether it's some new achievement for all of the dungeons or score. But as of right now on live, there are 8 different Keystone Hero achievements, one for each dungeon for doing it on a plus 20 key level. Then there's obviously the Mythic Spulker, the first ones, and then Gladiator Shadowland Season 3. That's actually being changed to Elite Season 3 as well. So you could do it in RBGs or 2s or 3s.
I gotta say though, one Keystone Hero dungeon relative to
I doubt it will be just 120.
The full
my guess,
Mythic Raid.
Well, my guess is that it'll be a new achievement that's score based called Keystone Hero. That is because there's currently no achievement called Keystone Hero, right? There's the 8 Keystone Hero Sanguine Depth, whatever achievements. My guess is it'll be just a new score one higher than KSM, but we'll see.
That definitely makes sense. I think that is cool that they are allowing you to be able to upgrade all of your conduits to 278 like with one item. I think that is just by itself something that
much nicer than the Korthia 5,000 research per or whatever, 3,000 per.
It does kind of feel exclusionary though that you need to do such high-end content to be able to purchase this item, and in addition to that have the rep.
Yeah, if it is just 120, then that will be a very lucrative source of boosting. Those boosts will be flying off the shelves.
I'm sure Twitter will be
that
will
happy. Lead to So another we'll get to make several videos on the controversy. That's part of the reason I think it'll be a big score achievement.
All right. So yeah, conduits. I think that ultimately this is not too bad of a thing. I mean, it being gated behind Exalted reputation, I'm sure it's going to take a while to be able to get. You're probably going to have if you're like a high end player, you'll probably have at least some of these by the time that you get Exalted with the Enlightened.
That's the thing, right? Like, what week is this going to be available? Is it going to be possible to get to Exalted, right? Because if you can get there by like the 4th or 5th week of Mythic, then for a lot of guilds, that's going to be something you can do if you can get your players Keystone Hero or Elite and then get them all their conduits. That'll be worth doing.
Yeah. Overall, the conduit's not even that big of an upgrade. Very, very minor. I mean, it's for some specs, it can be like an okay damage game, but it's never something that you're like, oh my god, my what are we right now? 252 conduit to 278 conduit. That's an 11% damage gain. That's just not a thing.
Right, but there is an 11% damage gain that is also gated behind this rep, and it's gated behind Revered rather than Exalted. So this is news really after we made our video last week about double legendaries and when are they going to come out and all that stuff. We still don't have a firm answer, but we have a lot more info now, which is we know that it's behind Revered, and we also know about how long it takes to get to Revered with the current PTR systems, which is in that 20 to 30 days range if you're playing every day and you're doing 25 minutes worth of dailies per day.
Yes.
But there are rumblings of there being systems that let you kill rares and open treasure chests to get more rep, more like RNG Korthia style rep on top of that per day.
So something that I also want to say is that things like this are definitely subject to change, and there's been a lot of pushback specifically with just the reputation and how long this reputation grind is supposed to take in regards to how big the power spike is for the double legendary.
I would say as well that oftentimes there are systems that just don't get tested on PTR related to this sort of thing. Like there often, if there's like a weekly chapter of the storyline that gets unlocked, like maybe there's a weekly chapter of the storyline that gives 10,000 rep at the end. That's the kind of thing that wouldn't get tested on PTR at all, but would hugely throw the calculations of when you get to Revered. by
Yeah.
multiple days, right?
So
So that sort of thing is definitely a possibility.
So at whenever you're looking at it currently, the minimum amount of time, if you're just doing the daily quests, which take somewhere, I think the estimated time is between 15 and 25 minutes a day. If you're just doing the absolute bare minimum, it takes around 28 days. And so like if you're doing things like gathering treasure chests or getting rep tokens, it took Anshlin, I want to say 23 days for him to get revered, which
Well, so
is
he didn't play for 23 days and get revered, right? What did
exactly.
he? He like did some math on
Okay.
the income, right?
Okay, I think I thought that he did it, but
Oh, did he? Okay.
I thought
I mean, maybe.
I thought that he did it. But anyways, so like this is, I think that 23 days or 28 days or whatever it is still entirely too long for double legendary, and you have to also factor in like when this is coming out during the raid cycle. This is coming out in the middle of like if you start and you are actively playing every single day of the patch, you're always doing your dailies like you and I would be doing. This isn't like something that everybody does, but if you're playing about as much as like you and I would be, or a little bit more hardcore players would be, and you're playing every single day, this would come out in the middle of Mythic Week, and
Right.
that is going to be a major power spike. And then it calls into question, what is the raid going to be tuned around? Is the raid going to be tuned around the idea of having two legendaries, or the first couple of bosses going to be tuned around the idea of only having one legendary, and then whenever you go to reclear them, suddenly you're 10% more powerful and you just absolutely zap those bosses into the ground?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion about like, is the raid going to be balanced around this or not? And I think that this sort of timescale is a little bit less of a question about that. Like, if these become available 2 or 3 days into Mythic Week, 99% of Mythic pulls are going to come after that. So I imagine they'll just be like most of the bosses will be balanced around having both of these. And yeah, a couple of the early bosses, you know, you'll kill them week 1 and they'll be a lot harder than they are in future weeks. But I don't know, those bosses are already like that. That's
This is
already
true.
the experience with bosses like Eye of the Jailer that, you know, take some progressing on the first week and then go down consistently after that in one pull.
I would say that ultimately though, my biggest qualm with the system is like having to tell friends of mine who have quit the game, oh yeah, so the system for next patch requires you to play for 28 days of
Yeah,
gameplay, of like game
I,
time to have double legendaries unlocked.
I think that this form of power gated behind a daily reset grind is definitely my least favorite thing. And that's as somebody who can pretty easily, you know, professionally even do it, right? Like do a daily grind. But like I don't know. I've much preferred previous systems where, you know, it's like weekly based, right? Like a weekly do this thing every week and
3 islands
you're
every
keeping up with
week.
power. Well, islands were a case of like do it unlimitedly. That's kind of a more classic style grind as well, right? Like the we're gonna game really hard for a week and get all of our islands done and got all of our neck level, right? That's what like Limit and Echo did every tier and in that expansion, right? And that's very similar to like the TBC or classic rep grinds, where it's just like, yeah, you're just gonna spam dungeons until you're exalted with this rep, and that's, you know, that's a. I also don't really like that. I much prefer where it's just like like I don't mind the time gate. I just don't like the hard daily requirement on these
So
things.
yeah, and I actually do think that it's fine that it's gated behind some quest or some RP activity or something related to Zereth Mortis. The problem that I ultimately have with it is just how long this grind is for the amount of power that you're going to be gaining. Because like for the conduits, we were talking about this. This is gated behind Revered. You're going to be getting, or this is gated behind Exalted potentially, and you have to do some like high level achievement. That's kind of hard, right? For you to be able to unlock all of your conduits at 272. We don't know if there are other ways to get conduits at 272 outside of just like normal sources like mythic rating and whatnot. But like assuming that there's not, okay, this is fine. This is like a really long system, but the amount of gain that I'm going to be getting is somewhere probably in like the 1.5%, maybe 1% mark. Whereas with something like this, being able to equip a second legendary, that's like almost 1 tier's worth of gear, maybe a tier and a half worth of gear, just in effective power that you are going to be behind if you don't play like that. And it's, in my mind, I would be very discouraged if I was trying to play with my friends and I was like, and they all had double legendaries, and then I like open up the calendar and I see that I'd have to play for 28 days consecutively, and say I only play 4 days a week. Oh my gosh, this is going to take me so long to get this unlocked.
Yeah, there's some technology that they've used in the past that I really would love to see applied to this sort of thing, where it's, you know, like the emissary systems, right? Where
Sure.
if you were trying to play the emissary system and you played 4 days of the week, you got all 7 days worth of the grind done, right? As long as, you know, those 4 days weren't all back to back to back to back. I guess you'd miss one day that way.
I do like that it's less min-maxy than both the Maw with the Stygia Eye of the Jailer garbage and the Korthia.
That remains to be seen, right? Like, you know, if you, it's the difference between getting it like for the start of Mythic Week versus for the end of Mythic Week. I don't know. That's a
That's
worthwhile speed up to get. Like, I mean, consider you could play human and get this done 2 or 3 days earlier, right? 10% more rep, and you
okay.
it's
This is
account wide
only,
on the revered.
dude. This is only worth for turbo nerds to do it like
So
that.
I'm just saying, just do the rep grind on a human and on your main, and you get your revered belt 3 days earlier, and then you can style on some fools at the end of heroic week, get some
S-
big parses, parlay
something
that
that
into an invite to limit, and you know, you're off to the races.
something that we did overlook though is that it is account wide.
Yes, so getting to revered and unlocking the belt, it unlocks the belt for your account, which is, I think, very nice. Very nice news from where I'm sitting. The
I
exalted
Yeah.
for the conduit thing is a little bit less clear. My suspicion is that won't be account wide.
I think that probably will not be account wide. Again, though,
But if
conduits
it is, I would be delighted. But yeah, we don't know.
very low impact. But I think that them already starting the double legendary thing at like unlocks account wide once you have one character revered, that is good news. I think that is very promising, and it's a bit of a change of pace from what we normally see from
Right.
Blizzard
The
in this regard.
system, like the usual alt unfriendly mistake, isn't being made here with this system, which is nice.
Yeah.
But it does still have that usual like returning player unfriendly mistake that you know, that'll be a little bit less obvious, I would say, until later into the patch. Although people are so used to it that they call it out as soon as there's any hint of it. I don't think you'll really start to feel it until, you know, like 3 months into the patch, when your friend asks you like, hey, should I come play
Should I
WoW?
come back? Yep.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh man, all of us have got these 2 legendaries a year.
I mean,
It's gonna be a good couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to
Like,
play
you know,
with
they see you
you.
doing keys or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, I want to come do keys with you." And you're like, "Yeah, you're gonna start playing now, but you're gonna be doing Zareth Mortis, not keys. That's gonna be your next 3 weeks."
Got to log in for 20. At least it's only 25 minutes a day. At least it seems like on average.
Yeah, it's which Korthia was a big offender here, because Korthia you could get good value out of like 3 hours a day, even more in that accursed zone.
That's
So
awful.
this is an improvement there from where I'm sitting.
Last thing is like I think that's something that got misconstrued, and we were even talked about it on our show. It's like the cipher of the first ones. There's going to be no player power gated behind Zareth Mortis Morgan Day interview. That kind of got misconstrued a little bit.
Yeah, so this happened for a lot of people. This in this interview, Morgan Day said there's not going to be any player power tied behind the cipher of the first one system, which people heard as there's not going to be a player power grind next patch, which was nice to believe, but not the case. And I think it's sort of understandable that it's not the case, right? Like they want there to be stuff to do in an MMO and stuff to do in the outdoor world. Like I get that. So yeah, there is still grind next patch, right? This rep is
Yeah.
that does tie player power, but the cipher the first one system remains a system that is not tied to player power. So that's still true. It's which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to a system that I can kind of take at my own pace and not be obligated to get as much as I can every day and like research all the fun out of it so that I can be good for raid and make sure I'm not inting my raid.
So what would you change about, like, would you change anything about the conduits at all, realistically?
I like the way that conduits are set up now, like the buying this item.
Yeah.
I am a little bit worried about for me personally and for guilds at my area. It does seem to me that it's going to create an incentive to grind to exalted instead of just to revered, because I think we'll be able to get to exalted potentially before we kill the boss. and so this means that means there's power behind Exalted for us. So that part makes me a little bit wary, but realistically, that affects a pretty small section of guilds that are like not good enough to kill the boss before you can get to Exalted, but good enough to kill it right around when you can get to Exalted.
And to want the Conduit upgrades that bad?
Yeah, I mean, all conduits to max level, like you said, couple percent there. Couple percent is not something to sniff at.
Okay, so I think that I would tend to agree. I don't think that there's like much that needs to necessarily be changed with this. It's like whatever, it's conduits. For legendaries, however, I think that the length of the grind personally would be changed in my mind. I think that
I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel weird when I hear people talk about this, because my instinct is like, when I hear it's like a 23-day grind or whatever, it doesn't sound to me like a long grind. I don't know if I've just been like Stockholm syndromed by some of the grinds recently. There's definitely a chance. To me, it's just like, I wish it was less. I wish the grind was better. Like, I wish that it wasn't a daily login. Make sure you log in every single day. Check. Because I don't enjoy that style of grind. But in terms of total length of grind, I'm a veteran of Korthia. I'm a veteran of like 7.0 Mob Souls, 7.1 Mob Souls.
Okay.
The various 8.x island.
Dude, you're giving me PTSD.
Things.
Oh my god!
When you compare the like total amount of time that's going to go into those grinds compared to 25 minutes a day for 23 days, I don't know. That seems like a pretty short total grind to me.
But those also play devil's advocate here. I don't know if I necessarily disagree, because I also play the game just a ton. But like, those were one grinds that you could like catch up if you were kind of behind. A lot of those grinds, at least, you could kind of catch up if you were behind. And like, they also almost all of the time didn't give you this much power. That Maw of Souls grind is probably the exception there. And that Maw of Souls grind was, I would say, the worst thing I've ever experienced. But
the 1-4 Nighthold, where you needed to get all of your Paragon weapon points so that you could 54? Survive Croesus. Yeah, get to 54 so you could live that fight. That was a special hell.
That was awful. I think that I do have a problem with like how long this grind is, especially for the amount of power that you're gaining. It's like we've kind of gone away from like we got sockets and conduits last patch, which you could kind of justify not getting. Like that was a couple percent. But whenever it's something as big as like the legendary, and it's like a major expansion system, and it's something that honestly just makes your character feel a lot better to play, then I start to have a little bit more of a problem with it, just as a whole. I don't know. I do think that you should grind for it, but I don't see the reason that it needs to be gated behind Revered, and it couldn't just be like a 2-hour quest chain, and then you just unlock it.
I mean, that's not a grind, right? That's a that's
I mean
2 hours,
meant something
right?
behind like casual content, like a story-based content is what I actually meant. Okay. Not necessarily like a grind.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Oh well. Anyways, we want to hear what you guys think. Do you think that the grind is too long? Do you think that it's just right? Are you a veteran of Maw of Souls like Dratnos? Or what else? Whatever else you may have thoughts on.
Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah. Goodbye.